Hi, this is my video for my mapping project. I am doing mine on the English Civil War because that applies to my dissertation. I'm doing my dissertation on a man who was a colonel during the English Civil War, fought for Parliament, would serve as a member of Parliament as well at points throughout the Civil War and Commonwealth. So the focus of my project is the Civil War itself. What happened? Why did it happen? The effects of it. So Charles I became king March 27, 1625. He ruled for a couple of years without too much issues, but the need for money and religious discontent, especially because his wife was Catholic, and a lot of the English felt that she would try to force Catholicism on them, and acts by Charles I and his Bishop William Laud really reinforced this idea as they pushed the High Anglican liturgy, vestments, rituals, which were very similar to the Catholics, onto England and tried to onto Scotland. So the overarching goal of my project is to better understand the English Civil War, how it affected the time period, people's especially religious beliefs, because the man I'm doing my dissertation, Edward Ley, wrote a lot about English religious beliefs, wrote one of the first kind of catechisms of the Reformed theology in England and what they believed. So my project matters because it helps people understand what the English Civil War is really about. And I think that's really important because, especially as we start looking at the American Revolution, a lot of the same issues are going to come up. Who has authority? Not just to tax, that's kind of a side thing, but who really has authority and control? So in the English Civil War, it's, does the king have authority to make decisions about religion, about taxes, about various laws, or does Parliament or the people have that authority? In the American Revolution, we see the same thing. Is it the colonial legislatures, like the Virginia House of Burgesses, that has that authority, or is it Parliament in England? And so seeing those similarities and how these same arguments are being applied both in the English Civil War and the Glorious Revolution, and then later in the American Revolution, and seeing that continuity, I think, is really important and helps people understand how these ideas play out over time and affect English history, and help develop ideas of constitutional government, liberty, religious freedom, freedom of speech, because they're all going to come up and be part of these discussions that these men have. So some of the things I hope my readers will understand with this is, one, that the English Civil War is a lot more complicated than at first glance we understand. A lot of people call it the War of the Three Kingdoms because Scotland, England, and Ireland are all going to be involved. You're going to have the Irish Catholics fighting the Irish Protestants. You're going to have the Scottish in the Civil War, while at the same time they're fighting Charles I. Charles is going to be fighting against Parliament, and at the beginning of the Civil War from 1639 with the First Bishops' War between Charles and Scotland to about 1647, the Scottish are going to fight against Charles. But after Charles surrenders to the Scottish, he's able to sign the engagement, which gives Scotland the permission to make England Presbyterian, or attempt to, for a couple of years. And this is going to turn Scotland against Parliament. They're going to end up fighting Parliament, but Oliver Cromwell and the New Model Army will win, will end up being them. And the New Model Army is another reason why this becomes important, because this is the first real standing professional army of England. There's rules that members of Parliament cannot be officers in the New Model Army. They don't want incompetent politicians involved. It's going to be very highly trained, a professional army. And this is going to make a huge difference in the Civil War for the parliamentary side, as this new model army is able to overcome and defeat the Scottish and other forces that Charles I is able to get. Another key takeaway I would like my readers to understand is that this was very much about religion just as much as it was about politics. Who had authority, and then the religious side, both in like Ireland between the Catholics and the Protestants, but also in England and Scotland, over what their beliefs were going to be. Were they going to have more of a reformed system? Or were they going to have more of the Henry VIII ideas, Elizabethan ideas of the church? How exactly will the Church of England and the Scottish Kirk develop? And this award is going to play a huge role in this. You're going to get the Scottish Covenanters, men like Samuel Rutherford, who will be important later on. His book Lex Rex will be read by the founding fathers as a justification to rebel against the king, because that's what Lex Rex is about. It's Samuel Rutherford's justification for the Scottish involvement in the Civil War. And he was alive at the time. He was part of the Westminster Assembly, and he wrote this book to help justify this. And so having people understand that it's very nuanced, that there's a lot of religious and political aspects to the Civil War, I think is very important. And just to see why the people were angry at Charles and some of the causes they had for this, and why his execution also turned people against what was happening. And people started to side with his son more because of that. Thank you for listening.